service. We have a special guest with us today, and you'll be blessed as he shares with us. Pat McCollough is the director of Streetlight Ministry, and we want you to get a little bit more informed about that. So would you welcome Pat as he comes to share with us right now? Thank you, Pat.
Thanks.
Pat's been in the Valley about 5 years. He worked for Food for the Hungry. If you're familiar with that, it's a relief organization, great ministry, sharing Christ and helping the needs of others. He got plugged into Streetlight Ministry, and now he's the president director of Streetlight. And it's a great ministry that our church has already begun to be involved with, but we're going to be doing some special things this week. And so I invited him to come so he can explain to us. Tell us what Streetlight is all about.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Roger. Streetlight's vision is to eradicate child sex slavery through a three-tier strategy of awareness, prevention, and aftercare. You see, when we discovered that child sex slavery was not just an issue that was happening on the other side of the world, but it was happening in our own backyard, that in fact, hundreds of girls just down the street from where we live and go to church and go to school and go to work tonight would be forced to live in existence as a child sex slavery right here. When we discovered that, to our horror, one of the things that we realized is that even if these girls were rescued, when these survivors were rescued, they were sent to detention homes, treated like criminals, not victims. They were sent back to their homes, and they would run back to the pimp. And so we realized this need for an aftercare facility, a safe house that would provide a safe place and promote healing for their lives, that would meet their physical, spiritual, emotional, and social needs. But we also recognized, and that's the awareness prevention, that we had to stop the supply and demand of this as well. That most people were like me when I first heard about this. They just didn't know it existed here. They didn't know that 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls tonight would be raped for profit. And that's the awareness prevention side of what we're doing at Streetlight.
All right, so it's not really their profit, it's the profit of the pimps that are involved in that. And tell me how this works. How do these girls get, because they're not just runaways, these are girls that are enticed and really kind of tricked into making these mistakes.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I learned as we started dealing with this. It's every demographic. A pimp with 5 to 6 girls will make $600,000 to $700,000 a year. And that's why we call it a slavery issue. A girl may make $1,000 a night, she's giving every penny back to that pimp. That's a slavery issue. But the girls, as you said, they're enticed, they're coerced, they're manipulated into this. And so in our branded documentary, you can hear one of our vice officers here in Phoenix saying, I'm not saying it happens every day, but I can guarantee you every mall in Greater Phoenix within the last month has had a pimp there that is looking for a potential victim. Movie theaters, malls, gas stations, anywhere. I liken these pimps to sharks. A shark, after they eat a meal, they're looking for another meal. These guys are always, always, always looking for a potential victim.
And so how do they do that? How do they approach these young girls?
Well, often they'll come up to them, perhaps in the mall, and they'll come up to this 14, 15-year-old girl and say, "Wow, you're really beautiful. You're model pretty. I'm a photographer. We can make a lot of money together. Here's my phone number. Why don't you call me up? Come over, get pictures." And I mean, this is one of many ways that they'll do this, and they're manipulating them, and they're master manipulators. I mean, what 13, 14, 15-year-old girl doesn't want to hear you're beautiful, you're pretty, we could make a lot of money? For instance, there was a 14-year-old from Scottsdale that was taken this last spring, and that's the way this guy manipulated her. He said, "We can make $250 a day, and all you have to do is come and get some pictures." And then she shows up to that and then is portraying to that guy that I could be a potential victim.
So a little more money, a little more revealing,
Yeah.
etc. And then how do they keep them locked into this?
Well, that's why I often say that sometimes the chains we can't see are more powerful than the chains we can see. And these girls are often, I'll give you one example, and we talk about this in our documentary film. One of the girls who was taken, kept in a dog crate, forced to pimp herself out, to prostitute herself out, every night. And later the police said, "Well, why didn't you leave?" Because there were times where she was left all alone in her apartment. And she said, one of the first nights when this pimp was grooming her, he would slide a picture of her sister, and then slide a picture of her sister's school, and then he slid a picture of a woman who had had acid poured on her face, and said, "If you ever leave, this is what I'll do." And that girl said that at that moment, emotionally, she died. And those chains that you couldn't see with her were more powerful than the chains you can see, and that's typical.
So this is something that happens like up in Central Phoenix, right? It doesn't happen right here, does it?
Absolutely, it happens here, yeah. Next Friday night in the concert that your church is hosting here, my daughter will share a little bit, and she'll share about a situation right up Alma School here, middle-class neighborhood. She was babysitting, she was in a park, and she was approached by a guy that started to say all of these things. "Hey, you're beautiful, you're model pretty, here's my phone number, why don't you come over, we'll get some pictures, wear some tight clothes and a bikini." And that wasn't in Phoenix, that wasn't on the other side of the world, that was right up the street here.
Yeah. since Pat has been sharing this, I've had several families tell me that their girls have told them that they have been approached. And so it happens all the time. Well, what can we do as a church to help?
Yeah. Mark Laberton, one of my favorite quotes, Mark Laberton wrote, "Part of the malady of our culture is this tragic rationale that if we can't do everything, we can't do anything. So we become paralyzed and inert." And that's true with this. The enormity of this issue can almost overwhelm us. And so we become paralyzed and we think, I can't do everything, so I can't do anything. Well, that's a lie. You can do something. And so what we're saying is, will you become a modern-day abolitionist? This is a slavery issue. And just like when we look back in history, when people saw these slavery issues, there was a movement of abolitionists that said, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And we're asking if you would be one of those modern-day abolitionists. There's several ways that you can do that. If you go out to the table that we have out there, there's a card here. Sign up for our e-newsletter, and it will give you updates and stories and different ways that you can volunteer in the future. Take one of these cards out there. If everybody in this room took one of these cards and gave it away in the next few days and just told someone, did you know that child sex slavery is still an issue right in our backyard? We would double the impact on awareness and prevention right in this room. Become a modern-day abolitionist. Go to our website. We're saying if the average age of entry is 13, and yet the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, would you give $13 a month? If 5,000 people gave $13 a month, it would completely cover all the direct care costs to run our facility for these rescued victims. 5,000 in a city of 3.5 million. There's a concert next week that your church is hosting, and your church has become one of those modern-day abolitionists. And so go out there and buy some tickets. Even if you don't go to the concert, buy some tickets and give them to someone that can come to the concert. It's another way of just raising awareness, raising some funds, and we have learned that awareness is prevention.
Great. Well, you know, someone has well said that all that's necessary for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing. And we're good people, and we don't want to do just nothing. And so that is why we invited Pat and want you to be aware of this and make this a matter of prayer. Would you welcome Pat and thank him for sharing with us?
Thank you.